Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we're going to be going over and talking about the Orioles and Ravens. We're going to be going over both teams today. Obviously, today is Saturday. Tomorrow, we're less than 24 hours away from the Ravens and Browns game, week 2 of the NFL, game number 2 for the Ravens. Obviously, last week, the Ravens lost to the Bills in an absolute heartbreaking game, but from a normal fan's perspective, obviously, that was like game of the year. That was the game of the first week of the NFL, and it was a heartbreaking loss for sure, but we have moved on to week 2. All this week that we've talked about the game statuses, we've talked about certain things that's happened throughout the week leading up into this game, but the game is tomorrow, week 2, against the Browns in Baltimore, the home opener for the Baltimore Ravens. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be very, very exciting to see the Ravens make their home opener, make their home debut, I guess, for the season. Obviously, we're going to see the Ravens team. We're going to see the Browns. The Ravens are currently favored by 11.5 points in that game. It is the biggest spread of the week by any team in the NFL. And there's some pretty lopsided matchups in the NFL this week, but this Ravens-Browns game, on paper at least, is probably the biggest lopsided game of the week. So we'll see what happens. You know, sportsbooks have the Ravens scoring the most amount of points this week, and they have the Browns scoring the least amount of points this week. So hopefully this isn't one of those scenarios where it kind of comes back to bite us and we end up losing in some heartbreaking way, embarrassing way, and stuff like that. Hopefully that doesn't happen. We'll go over the Ravens and Browns in just a second, but also in this episode, at the end of the episode, we're going to be going over and talking about the Orioles and Blue Jays, Game 2 of this 3-game series, where the Orioles lose a heartbreaking game due to the bullpen completely collapsing in the 9th inning. And the Orioles lose the game. The Orioles were winning 4-2 in the bottom of the 9th inning with 1 out, and unfortunately, a combination of Keegan Aiken and Yennier Cano cannot close out the game for the Orioles, and they end up getting walked off in the bottom of the 9th inning. The Blue Jays scored 3 runs in the bottom of the 9th, and Alejandro Kirk hit a walk-off sac fly to give the Blue Jays the win, and that also means now that the Orioles have lost this series already, even before Game 3 tomorrow. So tomorrow the Orioles are going to try to avoid the sweep. Hopefully the Orioles can at least get on the board and win one of those games, but this was a pretty heartbreaking loss for the Orioles. They were really in this game the entire time. They were leading by 2 runs going into the bottom of the 9th inning, and they even got the first out in the bottom of the 9th. But it just wasn't enough because, as we know, this bullpen is like an island of misfit toys at this point, and we understand that any sort of lead is really not safe with this bullpen, and we saw it on full display tonight. So we'll go over that Orioles game later on in this episode, but the first thing that I want to do is talk about this Ravens and Browns game for tomorrow. So looking here at the official injury report heading into tomorrow's game, this is the official injury report, the official game status for these players that were on the injury report. There's 5 total guys that were on the injury report throughout the week, and that was Jair Alexander, Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely, Namandi Madubuike, and Patrick Ricard. All 5 of those guys were on the injured list or on the injury report throughout the week, and we do have some good news regarding some of these players. The first thing, and some of y'all will call this good news, and probably a lot of y'all will call this bad news based on what happened last week, but Jair Alexander was a full participant in Thursday and Friday's practice, and he is officially 100% good to go for the game against the Browns tomorrow. And Jair, I personally think that going into the game last week against the Bills, I personally think that he was not anywhere near 100% healthy. I think that he wasn't near ready to play in the NFL, or not ready to play in the NFL. I don't think he was ready to play week 1, especially against an opponent like the Bills, who are an extremely good team. I just think having Jair out there was a little bit kind of like a burden in a way, and I do think that his health was a big reason why he just was not able to perform the way that he wanted to. But he did get a full practice in on Thursday, a full practice in on Friday, and hopefully that knee is feeling better. And hopefully Jair Alexander has a big bounce back week. Seeing him get an interception in this game would be nice, and seeing him get a pick 6 in this game would be nice as well. Seeing him get a pick 6 in this game would be nice as well. We've seen that a few times throughout his career when he was with Green Bay. So hopefully Jair Alexander can make up for it in a big way this game against the Browns, because he does kind of got to earn the trust back of a lot of Ravens fans, because he did have multiple plays in that Bills game that really put the Ravens in a bad position, especially in the fourth quarter. So Jair Alexander, hoping that he can have a big bounce back week against the Browns. It is going to be a lot easier of a matchup as well, so hopefully he can take advantage of that. Next up is Rashad Bateman. He did not practice on Friday because of a personal reason. We don't really know exactly what the reason is, but he did not play on Friday because of a personal reason, but he still will be ready to go for tomorrow's game. He practiced on Wednesday, practiced on Thursday like normal, didn't play on Friday because of a personal thing, but he will be good to go for tomorrow's game. So hopefully we start to involve Rashad Bateman a little bit more in this offense as well. Last week against the Browns, he was getting not against the Browns, last week against the Bills, he was getting kind of clamped up. Lamar, gave him, I think, 3 or 4 targets in that game. 2 of them, he was really getting, it was very physical down the field. It was kind of big long balls, big deep balls down to Rashad Bateman. And he was getting held a lot. There was a lot of physical contact on Rashad Bateman, lots of very close calls, maybe a hold, maybe not, whatever it was. But Rashad Bateman really did not have a role last week in the Ravens offense. Again, the Ravens offense last week against the Bills was all Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Zay Flowers. That was the offense, and as a whole, just those 3 guys kind of, all funneling between those 3 guys. Mark Andrews didn't really have a role at all. Rashad Bateman didn't really have a role at all. And then DeAndre Hopkins obviously had that one-handed touchdown. But I do think that Rashad Bateman's going to get used a lot more this week. I think Lamar is going to be testing him a lot more downfield because I do think that a lot of the pressure is going to be on, say, Flowers in this matchup based on what he did last week. So I do think Rashad Bateman is going to have a lot more openings in this game and a lot more opportunities to be great and really help out the Ravens in this game. So looking for maybe a big game for Bateman. And then Isaiah Likely obviously did not play yesterday. He didn't practice on Wednesday, didn't practice on Thursday, but what was really interesting about the Friday practice, and this is what was really hopeful for a lot of Ravens fans, and this is why I really do think Isaiah Likely is going to be playing next week against the Lions on Monday Night Football, because again, Monday Night Football, you get an extra day technically of practice because we do play week 3. We play Monday Night Football against the Lions, and if you guys see right here on Friday, Isaiah Likely got in a limited practice on Friday. Up until Friday's practice, it was all DNPs the entire time. We didn't put him on the IR because we knew that he was going to come back within the first 4 weeks, so there was no point of putting him on the IR. But Isaiah Likely didn't practice on Wednesday, didn't practice on Thursday. None of that's really surprising. But in yesterday's practice, on Friday, he was able to get in a limited practice, which is better than a DNP. So Isaiah Likely was able to get in a limited practice. He's still out for the game tomorrow, which makes sense. He hasn't, gotten in a full practice at all since the foot injury. But seeing Isaiah Likely get in a limited practice is very, very, very good news, because that kind of means that obviously he got in a limited practice yesterday. There's no practice today. Obviously, the game is tomorrow, and then when practice resumes probably on Tuesday, we might see Isaiah Likely log in, some full practices this week up until the game against the Lions. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a thing to monitor. But Isaiah Likely is looking like he could very potentially be available for week 3 against the Lions. And it's one of those things where the offense obviously isn't like the problem. We're not sitting here begging and needing for Isaiah Likely, but he definitely would help in a lot of situations for this offense, not only blocking but receiving-wise as well. It just opens up the field even more. So getting Isaiah Likely back will be a big, big help. He is going to be out for tomorrow's game. And then Namandi Madubuike got in. He had an ankle injury, which is a little bit of a surprise because he did play a big role in the game against the Bills last week. But he got into a DNP on Wednesday. He was limited on Thursday, but then was able to log a full practice in on Friday yesterday. So Madubuike will be good to go for tomorrow, which is huge because he had such a good week 1. One of the only defensive players who really played well in week 1 alongside Kyle Hamilton. And then Pat Ricard didn't play all week because of a calf injury. And this is one of those things that's a little scary because Pat Ricard does play a big role for this Ravens offense. It's not one of those things that show up on the stat sheet. He is a fullback, very similar to like a Kyle Juszczyk. His impact doesn't really show up on the stat sheet. He doesn't, have the rushes. He doesn't have the yards or anything like that. So if you're just purely watching a box score, you're really not going to tell his impact. But Pat Ricard, he is somebody who really is just an extra offensive lineman, and he's one of the best blocking fullbacks in the NFL. I would even argue and say he's the best blocking fullback in the NFL, and he's somebody that really, helps protect Lamar Jackson a lot of the time as someone who can step up as a fullback and be a blocker. So not having Pat Ricard does affect this offensive line, a little bit. He is an important part of this team. There's a reason why he's been voted an All-Pro multiple times, voted to a Pro Bowl multiple times. Like, Pat Ricard is one of the best fullbacks in football. Him and Kyle Juszczyk are definitely top two. But he didn't log a single practice this entire week, much like last week where he didn't log a practice. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday's practice, he didn't get a single practice in as well. So that is something to, monitor a little bit, something that is a little bit concerning. But Ricard seems like the only quote-unquote long-term injury, I guess, of guys that are currently on the roster. So Pat Ricard is also not going to be playing for tomorrow. But Isaiah Likely, Pat Ricard, not available for tomorrow's game. It is the exact same injury report pretty much as it was last week against the Bills. No Isaiah Likely, no Pat Ricard, but everybody else is good to go. And so going over to this Browns and Ravens game, obviously, big game tomorrow. It's a big game tomorrow because obviously the Ravens are making their home opener, but it's also a way for the Ravens to get on the board with a win. We all know what happened last week against the Bills. We understand how heartbreaking of a loss that was. We understand that, the Ravens probably should be 1-0 right now. But, due to a lot of circumstances where they, bad coaching and just bad defense and just a lot of things kind of happening at the same time, a lot of bad things happening at the same time in the fourth quarter, the Bills ended up coming back and beating the Ravens in an absolute heartbreaking, insane comeback fashion. And the Ravens are sitting here at 0-1, and you move on from it. It's week 2. There's no point of really bringing up the Bills game anymore because we are into week 2, a matchup against the Cleveland Browns, who are also 0-1. They lost to the Bengals last week. So going into this game, not only is it important to get a win here, go 1-1, and then be even on the season, and then move on to week 3, and then go from there. But this is also important because you look at the Cincinnati Bengals and you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are both favorites in the matchup that they're currently in. They also could get wins, and then the Steelers and the Bengals would be 2-0 if they win their games, and the Ravens are already behind them right now because they're 0-1, and the Bengals and the Steelers are 1-0. So the Ravens, the most important thing that they got to do tomorrow, I don't care how they do it, obviously, with everything that happened last week, with how good that this offense is, with how big the spread of this game is as well. You would obviously love to go see the Ravens win by 20, 30, 35 plus points in this game, and obviously that is a big possibility because of it's the Cleveland Browns. We understand it's a big possibility that the Ravens could just blow them out of the water. But it's one of those things that it is a divisional game, and even if the spread is this big for a divisional game, and even if the Browns aren't, even close to the Ravens on paper in terms of talent, it's one of those situations where, we've seen this Ravens team, play down to their competition before. One of the biggest, things in my mind that I'm thinking back to is actually last year in week 2 of last season, where last season the Ravens played the Chiefs in week 1 last year. They lost in a heartbreaking fashion. They started off the year 0-1 last year, and then they went and played the Raiders in Baltimore. It was their home opener. On paper, okay, this is going to be an easy game. The Ravens are going to get the win. They're going to blow them out. They're going to be 1-1, and then you move on from there. And then, in that game, the Ravens completely downplayed to their opponent, and the Raiders actually ended up winning that game last year. And the Ravens started off 0-2 last season, and then eventually made a comeback into the year and ended up doing fine by the end of it. But obviously, it is a little bit stressful when your team starts off 0-2, especially when you lose to a team that you're not supposed to. And the Ravens are kind of in the exact same position as they were last year in week 2, where they're playing an opponent that they should blow out of the water. Obviously, 1-1 sounds a hell of a lot better than 0-2, and hopefully the Ravens can just go out there and pull out the win. I don't care how they do it. Hopefully everyone can stay healthy. Hopefully everyone can be good to go for week 3. Praying for no injuries and just hoping for a win, because at the end of the day, that's what you got to root for. You got to root for the wins. If the Ravens win next week, or if the Ravens win tomorrow, they'll be 1-1 moving on to next week against the Lions. But we do have a very, very, an old friend showing up tomorrow in Baltimore. Tomorrow is like the 30th, year anniversary for the Ravens. They're kind of doing their celebration. That's what this whole season's kind of based off of. But the end zones in tomorrow's game, and I can actually pull up a picture real quick of it right now. And if you look at the end zones for tomorrow's game, it is going to be kind of like a classic old Ravens field. This is the field that the Ravens had when they first became a franchise. This is, the original classic Ravens end zones. The jerseys and the helmets are going to be the same as normal, but they are going to be customizing the end zones for tomorrow's game. Obviously, the kind of whole thing for the season is forevermore. 30 seasons of the Baltimore Ravens going into the season. So obviously, I don't think this is going to be a permanent thing that they do all year. But I think for tomorrow, they're kind of doing a whole celebration. They're going to have a bunch of guys out there. They're having actually a reunion for the Super Bowl back in 2012. So we're going to have guys like Ed Reed out there, Ray Lewis out there, Ray Rice out there. We're going to have a ton of guys out there. It's going to be really, really, really cool. But we're also going to have Joe Flacco quarterbacking for the Cleveland Browns in tomorrow's game, which is going to be really cool to see. It's going to be Joe Flacco's first time returning back to Baltimore and playing the Ravens in Baltimore. He's played the Ravens a couple of times since we traded him back in 2018. He has played the Ravens a couple of times since then, but none of them have been in Baltimore. So Joe Flacco making his return to Baltimore, I'm sure the crowd is going to give him a nice ovation. He deserves it. He's a legend in the city for sure. He's somebody that, Ravens fans in the city of Baltimore is never going to forget. So it's going to be really cool to see Joe Flacco come back to Baltimore tomorrow. But it kind of also makes me a little scared that Joe Flacco is going to return to Baltimore. He's going to go back to his prime and he's going to light our asses up and we're going to lose. So that's a little bit of a worry in me that we might end up losing to Joe Flacco in his return to Baltimore. I literally can already see the headlines everywhere talking about Joe Flacco return to Baltimore. He lit the Ravens up. That he gets a win in his return back. I can already see the headlines, but hopefully the Ravens stop that from happening. Hopefully the defense can do their thing tomorrow. But I kind of can already see the headlines for that happening. So hopefully it doesn't happen. But I think that the end zones for tomorrow look really, really, really cool. It'd been cool if they changed the helmets and the jersey for this game as well. Maybe they'll do a surprise drop sometime during the season for that, but I don't know. But tomorrow should be a lot of fun. But overall, as I've said, the Ravens are big, big favorites in this game, and they just got to go out there and get the job done. That's all they got to do. Go get the job done, get a win, no matter how you do it. Win the game and move on. Be 1-1 and move on. 1-1 should be what's in everyone's mind, because when you're 1-1, you're at a clean slate heading into week 3. And you're back in it, and things will be good. If they lose tomorrow, they're 0-2, and then there's a little bit of a panic that starts, because if the Ravens fall to 0-2, their next 3 opponents are the Lions, the Chiefs, and the Texans, and the Rams as well, their next 4 opponents. So those opponents are people that, will give you a run for your money, and the Ravens could easily start off, 1-4 or something like that if they're not careful. So getting a win tomorrow will really help with that, and they just got to go get the job done, man. That's all they got to do. But switching up sports here over to the Orioles. Obviously, the Orioles lose a heartbreaking game to the Blue Jays. They lose 4-5 to the Blue Jays. The Orioles record moves to 69-79 on the season, back to being 10 games below 500. And if we go over this game real quick, it just makes me mad talking about it because it was such a disappointing outcome. But the Orioles in this game had 7 total hits. They scored 4 runs off of those 7 hits. They hit one home run in this game. 4 runs off of the 7 hits. They went 3 for 11 with runners in scoring position. They left 6 guys on base. So once again, a very bad game regarding runners in scoring position. But starting off, Jackson Holliday went 1 for 4 in this game with a run scored and a walk. Jackson Holliday continues to play really good baseball, continues to just be a very good leadoff guy here in the month of September. 1 for 4, run scored, and a walk. Got on base twice in this game. And then batting second in this game is Dylan Beavers, and Jeremiah Jackson did not play in this game, so Dylan Beavers did get the call to be number 2 in the batting order. So Dylan Beavers, number 2 in the batting order, and Dylan Beavers is the type of player where he could be a really good leadoff or number 2 guy, and I think that the Orioles heading into next season, and maybe to finish out this season as well, I do think that they need to experiment with Dylan Beavers being in this spot, because Beavers had a great day. He went 0 for 1 in his at-bats, but he had 3 walks. So in his 4 at-bats, he walked in 3 of them. He also scored a run in this game as well. And there's actually a fun fact about Dylan Beavers. Since his debut, since August 13th, which was his debut, it's been actually, I think, exactly a month since his debut. Since Dylan Beavers' first game in the MLB, Beavers has the highest walk percentage of any player in baseball, which is really cool to see. He's somebody who's getting on base. Again, he's having an incredible outing. An incredible first month of his career has been amazing. Pretty much a 300 batting average, a 460 on base percentage, and a 418 slug. He's been incredible. Dylan Beavers, keep up the good work. And then Gunnar Henderson in this game kind of got back to doing Gunnar Henderson things. Went 2 for 4 in this game with a run scored and an RBI. Gunnar Henderson has been struggling a little bit in the month of September, but he does get a 2-hit day today, and also driving a run and score a run himself. Tyler O'Neill in this game goes 1 for 4 with an RBI, so it's nice to see Tyler O'Neill get a hit in his second game back and also get an RBI. And then Samuel Basallo, who is batting 5th in this game, went 1 for 4 with a RBI, and it was a double as well. He had a double yesterday. He had a double today. Samuel Basallo, a great game today. Almost hit a home run. It was a double off of the left center wall. Hit off of it, was able to get a double out of it, and also drove in a run in this game. So shout out to Basallo. Emmanuel Rivera went 0 for 4. Colton Cowser went 0 for 4. Dylan Carlson went 0 for 4. And then Kobe Mayo, batting 9th in this game, went 2 for 4 with a solo home run in this game. So shout out to Kobe. Big home run for him. And it's nice to see the young guys really go out there and play well. Guys like Kobe, guys like Samuel, guys like Dylan Beavers, guys like Jackson Holiday. It's really nice to see those guys continuing to produce as we head into the final couple weeks of the season. But going over to the pitching, and this is going to be kind of where the disasters happened in this game. First of all, I want to say shout out to Tomoyuki Sugano. He had a great day. He's had a pretty rough season overall. He has a lot of wins. He has 10 wins on his on the season. But he's had a pretty rough year overall, just in terms of his efficiency. And Tomoyuki Sugano in today's game, in one of his last starts, I think, as an Oriole, got through 6 innings of work, gave up 4 hits, 0 walks, and 1 run across 6 innings. Also had 4 strikeouts, and the 1 run that he gave up was a solo home run in this game by Addison Barger. So gave up a solo home run, but other than that, he was perfect in this game. Only 4 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts, 63 pitches through 6 innings. We did pull him a little bit early, but I think that was kind of the plan. And then Rico Garcia came in, didn't give up a run. Cade Stroud came in and gave up a run. And then Keegan Aiken came in, gave up a run. And then Yennier Cano came in to save the game, to go and get the save in the bottom of the 9th inning. He ends up getting the loss and a blown save. It's his 5th blown save of the year, by the way. Yennier Cano, 0.1 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run. Technically, the other one was from Cade Stroud. So 3 hits, 2 runs, and obviously gives up the walk-off sac fly to Alejandro Kirk. So Yennier Cano, trash. Keegan Aiken also play like trash. And what I'm starting to notice is when you put Keegan Aiken and Yennier Cano in closing late game situations like this, they always seem to crumble, which sucks. It's really unfortunate, and it just kind of bolsters even more the fact that I was about to say Mike Elias, but whoever the new GM for the Orioles is going into this offseason, we need to be very aggressive on getting a certified closer for this team, because we understand that Felix Bautista is probably not going to play for the Orioles ever again, and I don't even know if he's going to play baseball again. But getting a certified closer, revamping the bullpen, and getting a solidified starting pitcher, if they can do all of that, that would be incredible, but that's kind of the majority of what needs to happen. Position players, they don't need to even focus on any of them, but getting another certified closer for this rotation, just one, and then getting a certified closer, and then, getting some new bullpen names in there, would be great. Would be really great to see. You can keep some of them, but you got to get some new names in there. And then you move into 2026 and things will be all good. Obviously, very tough loss for the Orioles today, but what's new? They've been hot recently, but they do lose back-to-back games here to the Blue Jays, and then tomorrow they have to avoid getting swept. Tomorrow is going to be a bullpen game for the Orioles versus Shane Bieber, so we'll see what happens tomorrow, and hopefully they can avoid getting swept. But thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow up on Spotify, make sure to like the video on YouTube as well. Also make sure to click the link in the bio or whatever platform you're listening on to follow the Instagram and follow the Twitter. I'll be doing live Ravens game updates throughout the game tomorrow, live tweeting the game, live tweet Orioles games, live tweet Ravens games, and also just talk about news as well. So make sure to give that a follow. Again, I appreciate all the support. Tomorrow I will be doing a Obviously, tomorrow night or sometime tomorrow afternoon, I'll be doing an episode covering the Orioles game against the Blue Jays, game 3 of that. But more importantly, I'll be going over the Browns and Ravens game, where hopefully the Ravens can get a win tomorrow. The Ravens play at noon. They do have an early game, but if the Ravens win tomorrow, they'll go 1-1 and move forward. So hopefully the Ravens can get a win. That is all that's on our minds. Ravens football is tomorrow. Week 2 of Ravens football is tomorrow. Hopefully the Ravens can get a win and move on from there. So we'll go over that tomorrow in a long episode. Obviously going over the Orioles game as well, and then any other sort of news to discuss as well. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see you later. Peace out.